So I'll now hand the floor to Ms. Melanie Slade, Senior Program Manager in the Energy Efficiency Division of the IEA. She runs the Energy Efficiency in Emerging Economies program and will open this webinar for us now. Thank you, Melanie. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Maxine. So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this first stage of the engagement process for the India Roadmap for mainstreaming energy efficiency in residential buildings. So this work builds on the work of the Global Alliance for Buildings and Construction Regional Roadmap for Asia. And this is where we began to explore opportunities for priorities for further energy efficiency improvements in India. India's been making great progress on increasing the coverage of policies in the building sector, firstly with the development of the Commercial Building Code, and more recently, with the support of our colleagues in the Swiss government, the development of the Residential Building Code for thermal envelopes. This current phase, what we want to talk about today, is much more about increasing adoption, compliance, and enforcement. And this new road mapping process aims to identify some of the other measures that local, state, and national government, along with other stakeholders, could take to mainstream energy efficiency in the construction of new residential buildings, a particularly important sector in India, of course. So these energy efficiency measures will unlock the multiple benefits that efficient buildings have to offer in terms of jobs, health, and comfort. And these are even more important today than they are usually. We've seen through our analysis of an opportunity for a sustainable recovery plan that energy efficiency presents a huge opportunity for creation of new jobs. And so that's of course of particular interest here in India. So we trust today's session will set us on a course to identify priorities, challenges, and start to develop potential solutions. We look forward to engaging with everybody in this webinar and in webinars to come. So we're looking forward to hearing from our distinguished speakers, as well as our audience today. We want to make this as interactive as possible, so please do speak up, do ask questions. We'll be polling during the session to try and garner impressions about particular aspects. So the more interactive we can make this, the more fruitful it will be for us all. But before we go into that, I would like first to welcome a great friend of the IEA's, Mr. Abhay Bakre, Director General of the Bureau for Energy Efficiency, to make some opening remarks. So, Mr. Bakre, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Melanie, and good afternoon to all. It's really a very important subject that the building sector, energy efficiency. While we talk about different sectors, different areas, building sector is one particular sector where the energy efficiency efforts are directly result of the individual household, and also some kind of innovations or creativity which every household or every building sector has it, which is much different than the industry or transport sector where there are set kind of technologies, there are limited options available for the consumers. It is actually more of a supply side technologies in industry where the consumer has to select one of them, whereas the building side, there are their own options available. Good builders, developers, architects can create a variety of solutions, and that's where the energy efficiency has a much more flexible horizon available in the building sector. The other important issue is that building sector is again a very wide range of applications. If you start on one side, hotels and hospitals, to other side it could be schools, colleges, institutions. Then coming to the residential building, what we are discussing today is itself has a different types, whether it's a multi-story building, independent houses, townships, and different kinds of apartments. So in that regard, the energy efficiency got more challenges, but more variety also. And that means the expert agencies, the policymakers should have more flexible as well as more inclusive policies where they can accommodate maximum possible application at the same time, giving the highest kind of benefits to every applicant or every consumer. In this regard, IEA has been working with different countries, as just mentioned by Melanie. In India, also we have been trying for the building sector to get a major push. Last 3-4 years, we have been able to get the ECBC Commercial 2017, which itself was a very comprehensive code with more than 15 applications category, and then followed by our residential the efforts on the residential sector, which are coupled, supported by various partners, GIZ, SDC, etc. But I believe that a lot needs to be done on the residential sector. As I said, the canvas is very big. It is quite innovative. Every household has its own way of creating its world. So that's why we should be also equally innovative and equally creative in terms of offering more energy efficiency solutions. We can start from simple applications like the systems, starting from lighting or air conditioning. But we can go up to very complex areas of type of insulations, type of glasses, type of roof, and many more applications. The other important point is that the type of solutions or the options will also vary from the climate zones. The climate zone, as well as the different continents, they will have different benefits in terms of deploying different kinds of applications or solution. So in that manner, a comprehensive togetherness and a larger platform, I believe, at the world global level in developing different solutions in residential building should play a key role in benefiting every country who is joining this platform. And I think there are many countries, all of us, we can learn from each other in different climates, different architecture. In fact, in India itself, there are different centuries where different empires created their different set of architectures and branding. So in that manner, I think we have a big opportunities, at the same time a big case for learning from each other. And I believe today's seminar will actually go further step in this direction. So with this, I expect a very big panel here of experts who are all working with us, as well as international experts, including IEA. We can learn from each other and come out with better policies in coming future, so that in this decade, the decade which is starting, I think the building sector, and especially the residential building sector, should gain its priority and the position which is due in terms of energy efficiency. Thank you, IEA. Thank you, organizer, for inviting me here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Bakre. And I mean, you very clearly point out how we have huge potential benefits from energy efficiency, but they tend to appear to be complicated. And in order to achieve energy efficiency at speed and scale, we need to try to systemize things as much as we can and try and iron out those complexities. So hopefully we'll be starting to do that with these discussions. Now it's my great pleasure to introduce Ms. Natalie Toms, the Chief Economist at the British High Commission in Delhi. Natalie leads the British government's engagement on climate change and energy issues in India, as well as economic and financial relations. And Natalie says she's particularly excited to be working in India ahead of the UK's hosting of the COP26 summit. So we as the IEA would very much like to thank the UK government for the support that they give us in general, and particularly for our work in India as well. So Natalie, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you very much, Melanie, and thank you to you and to Mr. Bakre for inviting me to speak here at the webinar today. The UK is one of the founding members of the IEA's Clean Energy Transitions Programme, and it's been a pleasure to support and collaborate with both the IEA and the BEE on this webinar today, a really important work stream under this programme. Climate action is a subject to which both the UK and India are a force for good in the world. Events of the last year have shown us what happens when our relationship with nature breaks down. So now more than ever, it's important that we work together for a clean and for a resilient recovery. India is taking a huge amount of impressive action, and the UK is as well. So we're very keen to work together. And the UK is committed to supporting India's energy transition and climate goals, and the IEA's Clean Energy Transitions Programme is a key vehicle for us. We're particularly proud of our association with the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, which dates back to the time when PAT, Performance Achieved Trade Regulations for Industrial Energy Efficiency, were first being developed. Not everyone here may be aware that PAT is modelled in part on the UK's climate change agreements. And since then, we've gone on to solidify our partnership with BEE through the knowledge exchange platform on industrial energy efficiency, and now through the IEA's work on buildings, industrial energy efficiency and cooling under the Clean Energy Transitions Programme. And when it comes to energy efficient buildings, I feel the UK and India have a lot to share in particular. The building sector in the UK, along with transport, is one of the biggest sources of greenhouse gas emissions, accounting for around 23% of total UK emissions. And we recognise the need to improve that, to improve the energy efficiency of existing homes, combined with installing low carbon heating technologies. This is going to play a critical role in our climate goals, including our commitment to reach net zero emissions by 2050, as well as to reducing energy bills in the UK and lifting our households out of fuel poverty. The UK government is planning to publish a heat and building strategy later this year, which will set out the immediate actions we will take for reducing emissions from buildings. And our recent net zero buildings announcement committed £3 billion to build back greener and reach our net zero ambition on buildings. I hope the IEA can draw upon some of these international experiences while developing this roadmap for residential energy efficient buildings in India. And as the incoming COP26 presidency, as you mentioned, Melanie, I'd also just like to highlight and thank both BEE and IEA for collaborating with the UK on the COP26 Product Energy Energy Efficiency Initiative. Ahead of COP26, we're working closely together to strengthen super efficient equipment and appliance deployment initiative to coordinate international action for raising ambition on product efficiency, which is very exciting. And ahead of COP and beyond, we're focusing our efforts on 4 key energy consuming products: air conditioners, refrigerators, electric motors and lighting. These products alone account for over 40% of current global electricity consumption. And we want countries, all of us, to go on a global trajectory to doubling the efficiency of these 4 key products by 2030. This will improve grid resilience, energy security, amongst many other economic, social and environmental benefits. We look forward to continuing to work closely with India as co-leads of SEED and welcome the engagement of others, both in advance of COP26, but also afterwards and beyond on this really important issue. And at a moment when UK-India collaboration has already never been greater, I'm delighted to let you know that we will shortly be rolling out a UK-India joint programme on renewable energy and smart power. And we look forward to further strengthening our collaboration with BEE on energy efficiency as part of that programme. So I hope you have a really useful and interesting seminar today, and I hope the UK-India energy partnership goes from strength to strength over the next year. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Natalie, and thanks for really helpfully setting this energy efficiency work in the context of the work we're all doing together on COP26 and climate change in particular. Energy efficiency, of course, has a huge role to play there, and India has a huge role to play also as being one of the major energy using economies. And it's great to have India taking part in all of these international initiatives and contributing to them so proactively. On that point, I'm going to hand back to Maxine to look after you for the rest of this webinar. But just to say, my team and I are here to help. Please do get in touch if you need anything, either today or afterwards, and we'll look forward to working very closely with you all. Maxine.
Thank you, Melanie, and thank you, Mr. Bakker and Ms. Toms, for opening this webinar. So my name is Maxine Jordan, and I lead the buildings work in the Energy Efficiency in Emerging Economies program at the IEA, and I also coordinate the program's activities in India. And I would also like to welcome now Mr. Sarab Didi, who will be my co-host for the rest of this session. Mr. Didi is Director at the Bureau of Energy Efficiency. He leads the Bureau's work on energy efficiency in the buildings and transport sectors. And during his time with the Bureau, he has also led the Standards and Labeling Program, awareness campaigns, international cooperation, and has also been instrumental in the development of the Perform, Achieve and Trade scheme for industry. He therefore has a very broad perspective of the buildings and construction value chain, and we thank him for his collaboration and his insight so far on this project. So he'll now give us a short introductory presentation. So Mr. Didi, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you put my slides? Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good evening, and good morning, wherever you are. To Shri Ajay Janji, to Shri Vipin Sharma ji, and all other panelists, to Mel as well. I am not going to take much of the time. Next slide, please. So if we look at this pandemic time, and this is the picture which was very famous picture these days, and this is a picture of Himalayas from Jalandhar, Punjab. And normally this Himalayas were not visible from Jalandhar because that is somewhere around 200-300 kilometers away from Himalayas. But now sky is so clear, it was so clear that you can see Himalayas. And one of the reasons for why it was not visible was the climate change. And when all the activities were stopped, we were able to observe that. Next slide. This is Himalayas from Saharanpur, New Delhi during lockdown. Normally, Delhi sky is like that, it is gray or hazy, and we were not able to see anything like this sky. Now, that was the advantage of lockdown, or I'll say pandemic, but what we should do, that is the major question, that what we should do to keep things this way. And we can clearly see that if we can limit our activities for which are impacting climate change, then things may change or back to the normal. Now, that is the major thing what we are looking forward with this roadmap of IEA and BEE, and where we want to have a sustainable future where we can see this kind of sky on a regular basis. Next slide, please. Next slide. Thank you. Oops, one back. If we look at GDP versus our energy intensity, if we look at European Union or United States, even though GDP is increasing, but that energy intensity is not increasing. So that is the kind of future we would like to see in India. If we look at China and India, still I'd say GDP versus energy intensity, some way it is linked, but in the future we want that there should be unlinking of GDP with respect to energy intensity so that we can grow, but our energy consumption is not increasing as GDP is increasing. Next slide, please. Sorry, I got disconnected. Am I audible, Maxine?
Yes, you are.
Now, if we look at India's energy demand and projections, in 2016 and 17, we were consuming, or our demand was about 540 million tons of oil equivalent. But if we are going to have a same scenario, business as usual scenario, our demand will rise to 880 million tons of oil equivalent. And if we will do a moderate to energy efficient, ambitious scenario for energy saving, we can actually save around more than 100 million tons of oil equivalent in a year. So that is the amount of savings which we can observe. And you can imagine if we are talking about 100 million tons of oil equivalent, that means about 10 Sri Lanka, equivalent to 10 countries like Sri Lanka, we can actually save energy. So that kind of scenario we can actually achieve. Then next slide, please. So if we look at mandate of Bureau, Bureau's mandate is, I'll say, two dynamics. One is the regulatory provisions, and another is the provisions where we are actually supporting other activities with respect to our professionals and awareness and all those kind of things. So we developed policies, we support state designated agencies, and also we are creating cadre of professionals who are actually implementing energy efficiency activities in the states. Next slide. And it's not moved. And if we look at Bureau's activities, we are doing number of activities such as building energy efficiency program, perform achieve trade program, where you have observed that industry actually saved almost 10 million tons of oil equivalent every year. Then we are doing general awareness activities, energy conservation awards. We are focusing on demand side management with respect to agriculture DSM, municipal DSM, and also we have initiated areas such as transport fuel efficiency programs. And one of our leading program is star rating program, which everybody is aware of. Next slide. Now, if we look at buildings program, it is not moved. Okay, sorry. If we look at energy savings, what we have achieved in 2018 and 19, we have actually saved almost 136 billion units of electricity and 12 million tons of oil equivalent in 18 and 19, and which is almost equivalent to monetary savings of 89,000 crores and 151 million tons of CO2 reduction. So which is significant. And if we look into in terms of what is the primary energy supply to the country, it is almost equivalent to 2.69% of total primary energy supply to the country. Next slide, please. Now coming to building sector, building sector consumes almost 33 to 34% of total electricity consumption. And out of this, 9% consumed by commercial buildings and 24% consumed by the residential building. But if we look at recent times, consumption in the building sector actually increased because all other activity was less, but everybody is staying at home or in the buildings. So actually energy consumption in the sector increased in last 6 months. And what we observed that this consumption, which is right now roughly 33 to 34% is there, will actually cross industrial sector, which is right now first number in terms of total consumption, but it will cross industry as well in coming future, maybe by 2040. Now, why I said this is that 1 billion meter square of commercial buildings will be added by 2030, and 3 billion square meter of residential building will be added by 2030. So it is like that almost 2/3 of India is yet to be built. So you can imagine that how much energy consumption will increase because of the building sector. Second issue is that how our pockets are allowing. So people are shifting more and more towards the comfort conditioning. People are using more air conditioners, and even with if this construction is not going to happen, still energy consumption in the building sector will increase because more and more usage of air conditioners. If we look at data in last 5 years, where sales of air conditioner was roughly around 2 million air conditioner per annum, is increased to almost 7 million air conditioners sold last year. So you can imagine that how much energy consumption will increase only because of the comfort conditioning. So what we are doing, next slide, please. What we are doing for the building sector is two specific things. I'll say that for the commercial building, Energy Conservation Building Code, and for the residential building, Eco-Niwas Sanhita. These two codes actually support us in reduction of how much is the usage of electricity in the building. And one of the key area is the building envelope, that how we can design these buildings in such a way that requirement of air conditioning or requirement of comfort conditioning will be less, so that we are moving towards more sustainable future and inching towards passive design of the buildings. Then we are doing another program which is called a star rating of buildings for commercial buildings as well as for residential buildings. We have launched this program. But one of the major issue what we have faced is during the discussion with the developers or architects or other key players, that people used to say that where this building material for construction of energy efficient building is available. And second, what is the cost implication of the of such projects. So we are coming up with a building material directory, and also we are coming up with we are supporting demonstration projects. So every state we are supporting almost 5 to 6 projects by technical design of those projects, so that in the state we can actually demonstrate that yes, these buildings are energy efficient buildings. And similarly, the building material directory will help everyone that this building material is available in your state and what is the cost economics of that. And then we are giving a replicable design that if you don't want to do anything, just use this design booklet and you can construct your building. So these kind of activities we are doing in the building sector. Next slide. So these are the few of the activities which I already said: Energy Conservation Building Code, Eco-Niwas Sanhita, Residential Building Code, where we are where we actually giving you building passport and also the label. Next slide. This is building material directory, where actually you will get all the building types, typology, and according to your typology, you can select building material and what will be the impact of that building material on your building. That also you can calculate. So actual savings you can actually see. And also we are putting up tentative cost of that building material, whether that is available in your state or in your area or not. All those questions will be answered through this building material directory. Next slide. We are working on smart home programs so that you can actually control your home with respect to occupancy, with respect to the temperature, climate, everything, so that minimum electricity consumption will occur in your home. So we are working on in this area as well. Next slide. Then Eco-Niwas tool. This is the tool where you can actually design your building. You can see what will be the impact of each and every item which you have implemented, be it insulation or glass or any other thing you will use. And then you can see what will be the impact on my building design. So that kind of thing you can easily do with the Eco-Niwas tool. Next slide. Slide is not moving. Maxine. Yeah, thank you. That was my last slide. So looking forward to work with everyone, and over to Maxine.
Thank you very much, Mr. Didi, for that presentation. So, I now wanted to give you a short presentation about our concept for the roadmap for mainstreaming energy efficiency in residential buildings in India. So Mr. Didi has already given a helpful background to the current consumption of energy of residential buildings, the expected growth, and what the Bureau of Energy Efficiency is already doing about this. But just wanted to briefly just reinforce the point of the importance of the residential building sector in terms of its already considerable share of electricity consumption in terms of total electricity demand, but also in terms of the expected floor area growth that we saw in the last presentation. So really there is an opportunity here to ensure that emissions are not locked in by building buildings that are not as energy efficient as they could be, that will be around for decades to come. Now really is an opportune moment to ensure that energy efficiency is mainstreamed in all construction. One of the biggest drivers for the increase in electricity consumption of buildings is the rising access to cooling, as Mr. Didi mentioned. The implications of this growing access to space cooling in terms of active cooling and access to air conditioning in people's homes could have a really devastating effect on electricity grids in terms of huge contribution to peak electricity demand. So in a baseline scenario, the share of space cooling could reach up to 40%, over 40% of peak electricity demand. But energy efficient buildings and energy efficient cooling could limit this impact. But buildings also have a huge potential for savings in terms of building design. With passive solutions, the need for cooling could be drastically reduced. So this, as well as more energy efficient air conditioners, could put the growth of buildings' electricity demand on a different course, but still allowing the population, more of the population, to have better access to thermal comfort and space cooling. And buildings also have an array of other benefits. So in terms of the multiple benefits of energy efficiency, there are all sorts of benefits that are key to sustainable development. So in terms of, and buildings have a key role to play in that. So by lowering the embodied carbon of materials that are used in buildings that are built today can have a huge impact on emission of greenhouse gases. Buildings are also a place where increasingly variable electricity system, because of variable renewable energy generation. Buildings are a place where this new type of grid will interact with consumption, and buildings will have a key role to play in ensuring that buildings are equipped with storage and flexibility options to support these future power systems. Energy efficient building also provides access to quality housing and affordable energy services, such as lowering bills, but also increasing access to thermal comfort and to space conditioning. Buildings also have a role to play in ensuring that buildings are resilient to future climate events, and extending building lifetime, and there is an opportunity to extend building lifetimes by building with life cycle analysis in mind, and in design of buildings that will last longer and have an impact on the total embodied carbon of buildings. Buildings efficiency measures have also been identified as having huge potential for creation of jobs and economic development. In our sustainable recovery report, we found that buildings measures for new construction and retrofits of existing buildings actually had a very high index of job creation per $1 million of investment. Therefore, buildings measures are key at this time today. So in order to try to unlock all of these potential benefits that more efficient buildings could bring, we've been working with the GlobalABC, which is the Global Alliance for Buildings and Construction, to identify the measures that will unlock these benefits. So these documents are out now. We have a global roadmap and an Asia roadmap, as well as Africa and Latin America. And in these roadmaps, we developed them in collaboration with many stakeholders across the value chain of buildings. And we covered 8 themes, including urban planning, new buildings, existing buildings, building operations, appliances and systems, materials, resilience, and clean energy, to try to cover all of the different facets that buildings and construction have, and the potential impacts that buildings measures can have on our environment and on our society. The findings of this process was that ambition does exist to get to net zero buildings by as soon as 2050. And we worked with the stakeholders to identify short-term, medium-term, and long-term targets for each of these topics, and identified each of the key policies and the key technologies that will enable the sector to move towards net zero buildings. We also included some best practice examples from each of the regions, and there are some excellent examples of programs in all of these regions, including Asia and particularly in India. We did see that there were some gaps, some significant gaps in data, and in some cases some ambition gaps in terms of some sectors more difficult to address, including materials. But we found that convening stakeholders together to talk about the different multiple benefits that are achievable was an effective way of creating a more common vision, and this process really set out a framework of identifying among each of the topics which are the key strategies to move forward. So thinking of what a buildings roadmap would mean for India, we had discussions about what are the key priority areas. And as already mentioned, one of the priority areas would be residential buildings because of the important growth in this sector. So we've defined a couple of objectives for this process. One of them is to focus on high-rise residential buildings and affordable housing, as these are particular sectors with high growth associated. We also want to facilitate the adoption of the residential building code that has been released but has not been fully implemented in all of the states and all of the cities. We also want to facilitate the adoption of other voluntary green building standards and rating systems, because there are many programs available and working on the voluntary adoption of these systems through market mechanisms. We also want to work on promoting the use of low carbon materials, more integrated urban planning, and clean energy integration in the design of new buildings. And also looking at developing a strategy to reach nearly zero energy residential buildings in India. So what will be the steps to achieve this goal? We also hope that this will be a process that will enable us to strengthen the community of stakeholders in this sector, help break down silos and foster collaboration across different areas. So the methodology will be to focus primarily on new residential buildings and at their interaction with the fields of urban planning, embodied carbon, and clean energy. And the structure that we intend to follow is identifying for each of these themes, what are the key issues, what are the existing policies and programs, who are the key stakeholders, and most importantly, what are the recommended actions for each of these different stakeholder groups. And we'll also be looking at methodologies to track progress and identifying indicators that will be able to evaluate progress in each of these key actions. And the way that we hope to do this is by convening stakeholders around the multiple benefits of energy efficiency, as they're different to different stakeholder groups, linking them to sustainable development goals and other priorities of the government and of India. And as mentioned, linking them to opportunities that these measures might have to stimulate an economic recovery. So in terms of a roadmap methodology, more or less, the way that we are approaching this is to try to get consensus on all of the stakeholders on where we are today, where we want to get to, what is the vision, and how do we get there. In terms of the vision, there are many different aspects that might appeal to different people and to different stakeholder groups, whether it's compliance with the code, whether it's getting to net zero buildings, achieving thermal comfort for all, integrating with the power system, looking at the intersection with urban planning, or reaching increased coordination across different levels of government. And how do we get there? This is where we're talking to stakeholders to identify the measures that will enable that. In terms of key findings so far, Mr. Didi mentioned many of these already, so I'll be quick. I just wanted to add to what we already know. We have the questions that we want to explore through this process is looking at how to increase the adoption of voluntary standards and also increase the adoption of mandatory standards in states and cities. We also want to look into how familiar designers are with the tools available and where the benefits are recognized by all different stakeholder groups. We also want to look at what would be the most appropriate indicators of progress, how these measures might be applied to the affordable housing sector, what an incremental strategy for net zero buildings would look like. And we also want to explore whether COVID-19 will be a hindrance or an opportunity for accelerating progress here. So these are the sorts of questions that we'll be exploring in this process. And in materials, we understand there is already some great programs underway, and we'll be looking at how to facilitate the adoption of these tools in mainstream construction and what kind of support would be required to really create a market transformation for low carbon materials. And in urban planning and clean energy, similarly, we are aware of several excellent programs looking at smart cities, prioritizing affordable housing, and also some cool roof policies. And we really want to look at how these can be more mainstreamed and what might be the different mechanisms to do that, whether it's through building codes or through incentives. So in order to summarize where we're trying to get to, the output of this roadmap intends to be some concise actions that could be taken by particular stakeholder groups. So really understanding what are the different opportunities for different stakeholder groups to do. Looking at the multiple benefits that are at stake and really trying to quantify them and communicate them as much as possible. Also developing indicators to track progress and identifying short, medium and long-term goals. But we really would like to hear feedback from stakeholders and from everyone that's on the webinar today about this approach, about what features you think would be more or less valuable of this process. So we'll be holding several stakeholder consultations, webinars, training events, circulating our draft documents for comment. And we've also created a LinkedIn group to enable more closer collaboration and sharing of ideas there. So I'll share the link again in the group for you to join. So just wanted to let you know that we've also got some live polls going, and these are some questions that you can answer in your own time. So if you go to www.menti.com and use the code 309047, we'll also post the link in the chat box so that you can answer them in your own time. But we'd really like to hear from you which type of organizations you represent and some answers to some of these questions. So which policy instruments could better motivate voluntary adoption of green building measures? What is the biggest challenge faced by the industry in the construction of energy efficient buildings? Ranking the following multiple benefits of energy efficient buildings in order of their importance to you. And finally, how useful to you do you think the features of the IEA roadmap would be? So the full questions are available if you go to menti.com, and we'll share the link and we'll look at the responses at the end of the session. So now we have a distinguished panel of speakers for you, after which we'll look at the poll results and have time for a couple of Q&A session from the audience. So Mr. Didi, I let you introduce our distinguished panel.
Thank you, Maxine. We have esteemed panelists, right from Mr. Ajay Jain, Mr. Vipin Sharma, Mr. Suneet Mathur, Mr. Hanumantha Rayappaji, Mr. Raj Kiran, Mr. Dr. Anand Shukla, Mr. Vikas Ranjan. And one by one, I will tell you about all of these people. But if you look at Mr. Ajay Jain ji, who is actually Principal Secretary housing department to government of Andhra Pradesh, and his profile is actually best suited to support such activities. He is an electrical engineer from IIT Kanpur, and now he is in housing department who actually can support such activities for the residential building. Also, he worked in Industrial Infrastructure Corporation, Andhra Pradesh Power Finance Corporation, AP Technical Education, Andhra Pradesh Power Generation Corporation, AP Transco, AP Genco. And if we look at all these things, actually we want such a person with such a profile who is having experience in energy sector, who is having experience in infrastructure development and finance as well. So all three things together are with Mr. Ajay Jain, who will actually are with us. Then we have Mr. Vipin Sharma, who is Commissioner, Thane Municipal Corporation. Mr. Sharma belongs to 2005 batch of IAS. He previously held the position of Director General MEDA. And actually, he is the person who took things very forward in case of energy conservation. And he is the person who actually supported ECBC code in Maharashtra and took it to the municipal bodies also. And also ECBC got cleared during his tenure. So it went to the next stages for the notification in his tenure. He has experience working with ULBs. So he is also having experience, both I'll say ULB level experience as well as energy experience, which is actually required for the implementation of such things in the states. And buildings is one of the program where state role is very, very essential, very much essential. Then we have Mr. Suneet Mathur, who is General Manager, Rajasthan Renewable Energy Corporation Limited. He is having 30 years of experience in the energy sector. He has worked in decentralized off-grid solar electrification and water pumping system in Rajasthan Energy Development Agency. Now he is actually working extensively on the implementation of the Energy Conservation Code in the state of Rajasthan. So he's working day and night for this. Then we have Mr. Hanumant Rayappaji, who is Assistant General Manager, and he's from such a state who is always, which state is always, I'll say on the top for implementation of energy conservation activities. So Karnataka did ECBC code. Now they have implemented ECBC code and working very extensively in the residential building sector as well. Hanumant Rayappaji joined power sector in 1991 and he's having a various fields experience, especially for power sector for 29 years, such as technical audit, quality control, operations, maintenance of substation, servicing of various multi-storied building. He's presently working as Assistant General Manager in Energy Conservation and Energy Efficiency Division at Karnataka Renewable Energy Department. Then we have Mr. Rajkiran Bilolikar. He is Associate Professor in ASCII. He's supporting actually our two states, Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, in implementation of ECBC activities. So he can give us profile from the other perspective as well, that how implementation can actually happen. At Center of Energy Studies, Professor Bilolikar leads the energy efficiency and renewable energy projects. Mr. Bilolikar has worked in Maharashtra State Electricity Distribution Company before joining ASCII. He has more than 19 years of experience in electricity distribution, energy efficiency policies, renewable energy, strategic management, and clean mobility. Then we have Dr. Anand Shukla, who is from Swiss Agency for Development and Corporation. He is a senior thematic advisor. He is having about 25 years of working experience. He is responsible for climate change mitigation projects in the field of energy efficiency, renewable energy, and clean energy. I know him before joining even SDC, and he's having experience of different agencies who are actually supporting energy efficiency activities and how energy efficiency activities can be promoted. So his role is actually equally important in this area. He is also having a PhD degree in the field of renewable energy. Then we have Mr. Vikas Ranjan, who is presently working as program manager in IGEN GIZ GIZ building project, which is actually supporting Bureau of Energy Efficiency in regular day-to-day activities. If you look at the building materials directory or replicable building design, all those things are actually being done by the support of GIZ. He is mainly involved in implementation of NMEEE. He was actually involved in PAT program, components of NAPCC. He has done extensive work in the field of energy efficiency and climate change in India and Southeast Asian countries in industries and the building sector. He possesses graduate degree in electrical engineering and is certified energy auditor, and as well as renewable grid manager from Berlin University, Germany. With this introduction, now we would like to have, we can start the discussion, panel discussion. Is it okay, Maxine?
Yes, let's.
So first of all, I would like to welcome all of you and all the panelists to the panel discussion. And if you can switch on your mics and the camera so that we can see all of you. So,
Saurabh, I think the video is blocked by the host, so I'm not able to switch on here.
This is, I think, Anand Shukla ji. If Disha, you can see, check that what is the issue.
Yeah, same here.
Adu Janji's video is also not. He's not able to switch on his videos.
We're working on it. Sorry about that.
So, if we can start in the meantime. My first question is to Mr. Ajay Jain. Sir, BEE published the first addendum of Econivas Sahita in 2018. But for the code to become successful, partnership from ULB to accept the code and implementation is required. So what are the strategies you think are the best to work at municipal level for the adoption of building energy efficiency policies such as Econivas Sahita at ULB level? Sir. Ajay Jain.
Yeah, I think, yeah. Video is still not enabled.
Yes.
So, but I think audio
yes,
is enabled.
You.
Are you able to listen, Saurabh?
Yes, we can hear you, sir. We can.
Okay. Yeah, sure. So, first of all, Mr. Saurabh, then Miss Jordan, all the esteemed panelists and all the participants. I would like to take this opportunity to thank IEA for organizing this webinar on a very, very relevant topic in the entire globe and more so in India on energy efficiency. Well, India has taken a lead for the last 5-6 years or a decade or so in green energy and also energy efficiency. Now, as all of you know, would be knowing, India is the founder member of International Solar Alliance, has taken the lead. Our Honorable Prime Minister Modi ji has kept a vision of adding 175 gigawatt of green energy, of which more than 50% has already been added. And in the next 2 years, we hope to achieve the remaining balance also. And now we are targeting 450 gigawatt by 2030. Apart from this energy efficiency, along with BEE and ESL and other agencies, various states in India have also taken the lead. Whether it is in the domestic sector by the distribution of LEDs or in the ULBs, when we had gone for energy efficient lights, and then similarly in agriculture sector, and also the topic for today, that is the building sector. Now, as all of us know, and it has already been indicated, that the building sector consumes about 1/3 of the energy consumption in the country. Same is the case in our state, where I come from, that is Andhra Pradesh. So we have 110 urban local bodies. So here also we have implemented the ECBC code. And now for giving building permission to any new building, the compliance with ECBC code is mandatory. Then only the permission is given. In urban areas, as I earlier mentioned, we have gone for all energy efficient lights, the street lighting. Similarly, in the pump sets for the drinking water supply which they use are all energy efficient pumps which are being used. and ECBC code has been implemented for all commercial buildings. Now the department which I head now, that is the housing department. Here we have a huge challenge, a huge opportunity, and as a challenge, but a huge opportunity as well. Now, as part of Housing for All, we are taking up construction of 3 million houses in the next 3 years. The whole idea is that everybody in the government, everybody who is not having a house in the state has to be provided a house. So for this, a total survey was done. About 3 million people have been found to be without a proper pakka house, proper house. Therefore, now government has acquired land for them, and now construction of 3 million houses has to be done. So while we are constructing new houses, so an idea came upon us, why not we go for energy efficient houses? Because when new residential buildings are being constructed, because if a already constructed building is there, if we have to make it energy efficient, requires a lot of effort and a lot of investment. While if a new house is being constructed, it's always easy to go for the energy efficient building materials as well as the plan, the design, and everything can be made as per the energy efficiency code. Therefore, we have gone for that. We are working closely with BEE and also the Indo-Swiss Energy Agency. And now I'm very happy that IEA has organized this. So we'll be looking forward to some good suggestions from this webinar as well. Now, the whole design of our house, which we are constructing about 3 million houses with a total investment of about $9 billion, which has to be done in the next 3 years. The design has been vetted by the BEE. So the original design of the house is such that the wall to floor, at the windows to wall ratio or the windows to floor ratio. Similarly, the heat aspect, so ventilation, natural ventilation and natural lighting is taken care so that we need not have to depend on the electric lighting, at least during the daytime. And then also, most important thing is the cooling aspect, because we are from a state which has a very hot tropical climate. Therefore, cooling takes a lot of energy. Therefore, if we can use such materials wherein the natural cooling is there and the temperature drops by 2 degrees to 4 degrees centigrade because of the energy efficient measures, I think it will go a long way in decreasing the energy consumption. So that also has been done. We are using some sort of a refractive paint, and the whole design of the house is made so that there is a natural cooling. And I'm very happy to share that BE and others are working closely with us. They have vetted our design, and the building design inventory which has been done, we are working closely. But the challenge is how to go for low cost housing in that, because the houses we are constructing are for the poor people. So we cannot afford very costly material. Therefore, the challenge is to have energy efficient materials, but at the same time should be cost effective. So while this could go in decreasing the energy consumption, promoting the clean energy and reducing the greenhouse gas emissions, it also lowers the energy bill for the households. So I think so it's a win-win situation for both. So this is a huge challenge which we are working now. So these houses are being grounded shortly. So 3 million houses in the next 3 years. And I think if the government, if the housing department, if we can take the lead, I'm sure the private sector or the individuals who are constructing house of their own, they would also follow and go for energy efficient buildings. So this is what we have adopted. And apart from this, of course, the code is there in industries also. We are working with the PAT and all to see that how energy consumption can be reduced. So I can only say that in Andhra Pradesh, energy efficiency is not only a program, it is a movement. It has been taken up as a movement, as a incorporated by all the departments. And then secondly, another thing I forgot to mention, that in all these 3 million houses, we are providing all energy efficient appliances, whether it is LEDs or it is tube lights or it is energy efficient fans. So all are 5-star rated appliances which would be provided in these colonies. And all these houses are in colonies. So 17,000 colonies consisting of 3 million houses. So of course the street lights and all the pumping system and all would also be energy efficient. So I think this could be one of the world's largest housing programs taken at a time at one place, in which all the houses are ECBC compliant and they adopt the energy efficient measures. So this is what we are doing in Andhra Pradesh, which I wanted to share with all the panelists. And I would like to thank Saurabh ji and also IEA for organizing this and we look forward to your suggestions when we are actually implementing this program. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And clapping for the activity is actually what you are doing. And now we can see you as well. Sir, I have one more question, if you allow me.
Yeah, sure.
That with the respect to the things which you are doing, they are so elaborative and with, I'll say, such a level, big level you are doing. But what is your suggestion for in terms of lack of manpower, I'll say, or the clear guidance for them that how this will be implemented? We need to have manpower for that. So what is your opinion on that? That how we can also support if required?
Yes.
In this area?
Sure. Now, see, as far as manpower is concerned, I think what we have done is there's another system which is there in Andhra Pradesh. For every village, for every, the village or for every ward in a urban local body, we have a secretariat, a mini secretariat is there, in which we have got 10 permanent government employees, and one of them is an engineering assistant. So he's a qualified engineer. For every 2,000 population, one engineer is posted. So basically for every 500 houses, you can say there is one engineer available. And for every 50 households, we have a volunteer is in place. He's not a government employee, but he gives some honorarium. He works for the government to deliver government programs, the welfare schemes to the people, as well as deliver various services. Similarly, we have got a digital assistant. The person who handles the computers and who can do mapping, geotagging, etc. in this village secretariat or the ward secretariat. So as I said, we have got about 1.3 lakhs, that is 130,000 employees in the state who are positioned in the villages and wards. Now, as you rightly said, manpower, as far as employees are concerned, is not a challenge, but the big challenge would be to train these people. We have to train because they would be the ones who will be supervising the construction of these houses. Therefore, we have to train all these 15,000 engineers who are there. We have got about 0.26 million volunteers who are there. They have to be trained, who will be interacting with these 3 million households who are actually constructing the houses. So I think what we look forward to you is to organizing suitable training programs for them on the design, on the energy efficient measures, and then what are the precautions to be taken while construction of the houses, so that we really construct a model energy efficient house as per Econivas Samhita. So I think we'll be closely working with you in capacity building and training of these employees, and also of course the workers also, in terms of skilled workers, the masons, the plumbers, etc. Similarly, the unskilled people who are doing. So once we can train this 15,000 people, I think they should be able to train the workforce who are actually constructing the house. So this is the support we look forward to you, Mr. Saurabh.
Thank you, sir. Looking forward to work with you, sir.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now, from one stalwart to another stalwart, I'll say, and I had the opportunity to work with Mr. Vipin Sharma ji also when he was Director General of MEDA. And I must say that that was one of the best time at MEDA when things were moved actually exceptionally at the rapid speed. Sir, Vipin ji, are you there?
Yeah, I can hear you, yeah.
Okay, sir. I have one question for you. Maharashtra has been one of the most active states to notify building energy code and develop strategies to incorporate energy efficiency at ULB level as well. What are the opportunities present at ULB level, and how ULBs benefit the implementation or get benefit and give benefit for the implementation of the code?
So first of all, thank you, Mr. Didi, for your kind words of introduction and other kind words about me. I would like to thank the agency and the Bureau for this webinar on an India roadmap for mainstreaming energy efficiency in residential buildings. And I think Bakre sir is here, Miss Slade, Miss Toms, then Miss Jordan, again Mr. Didi yourself, Honorable Jain sir. I'm very thankful to you for adding me to the panel and make a part of this discussion. introduction to the today's webinar was very interesting, both by Ms. Jordan and by you, Mr. Didi. Very insightful. Now coming to the Maharashtra and the ULB level opportunities and how ULBs can benefit from implementation of the code. So Maharashtra is one of the largest urbanized states in the country, and Maharashtra has taken so many steps to incorporate energy efficiency at ULB levels, and in fact Maharashtra was one of the first states which had a separate energy conservation policy declared and adopted, which aims to save 1,000 megawatt of energy in next 5 years starting from 2017. Also, Maharashtra became the first state to have a demand side management regulation, which requires every distribution licensee to prepare a DSM plan based on 5-year planning horizon. In the field of energy efficiency, in fact, Maharashtra started the draft of ECBC quite early. Still, it is in the final stages of notification. In the meantime, Eco-Niwas Sanhita also has been initiated for residential building sectors. Urban local bodies come directly in the picture when we discuss the energy efficiency steps to be taken for buildings, because most of the buildings need urban local body sanction, whether it is a corporation or a municipal council. So obviously urban local bodies come in a regulatory capacity. In terms with existing acts and rules, the plans are sanctioned, the buildings are given commencement certificate. After the buildings are constructed, then they are given occupancy certificate. In Maharashtra and especially in Thane Municipal Corporation area, there is a massive building construction activity going on, both in private sector as well as Jan sir has suggested, in the government sector, whether it is for cluster redevelopment, whether it is for affordable housing, whether it is for slum redevelopment. So these are the all activities going on, and a massive building activity is going on. Here the basic challenge is that one is that the energy efficient materials which are available, most of them remain in terms of experimental material. When it comes to questions of scale and pricing, then there is a lot of challenge in adopting these materials while constructing the buildings of this magnitude, like we are constructing in Thane. That is one part. Second is the exposure of existing building construction industry workforce to these kind of materials. This includes the basic building construction laborers, which are semi-skilled or unskilled laborers. So there is a need to expose them, to train them for this kind of material, so that these kind of these materials and this kind of technology can be incorporated in construction of the upcoming buildings. Then a major part is the education of the building permission department of ULBs themselves. While I was in MEDA, with the help of Bureau, we had organized many trainings and contact programs with various urban local bodies in Maharashtra. And we had tried to train a majority of the building construction department officials. Also, in the meantime, Maharashtra is moving towards having unified development control regulations, which we call as unified DCR. So unified DCR also includes the ECBC and Eco-Niwas Sanhita practices. These practices have already been incorporated into the draft of UDCR. UDCR is expected to be notified anytime now. It's in the final stages of notification. So these are the activities which have been going on in the state of Maharashtra. And once UDCR is notified, then it will be the guiding principle and the kind of the Bible for town planning, building permissions, town development activities at ULB levels. And then the energy efficiency activities, energy efficiency buildings can move ahead in a big way. In the meantime, also, while I was in MEDA, we had started this process of star rating of the buildings in cooperation with the Bureau. And then it was suggested at that time that urban local bodies should provide some kind of incentives to these star rated buildings in property tax and other receivables. So that in fact is again a part of the draft UDCR. Once UDCR is out, I think that could see the light of the day. That will give a huge boost to these large buildings in the cities like Thane. Also, it's not only about the permissions as the energy efficient buildings. constructing a building as energy efficient is one part. Constructing a building in a plan which saves energy is another part. But the people who stay in these buildings, they have to also adopt energy efficient way of life. This is something now I think the Bureau and all SDAs can focus on. Like we have learned to live with Corona. So it has taken us around almost 6 or 7 months to live with, learn to live with Corona. So we have to learn to live in an energy efficient way. This is something which needs a lot of public awareness and awareness activities. Like we had this 24 degrees Celsius air conditioning campaign. That has helped a lot because India is a tropical country. We have in fact more cooling needs than countries like UK. So obviously this becomes very, very important for people to know that this small step can save enough energy to really make a difference. So these are the issues which now need to be focused on, apart from the upcoming opportunities which are coming, which are still present or upcoming at urban local body levels. And urban local bodies also save from implementation of the code in the sense that we get carbon credits, the air becomes clear as you have shown in your opening remarks. So obviously it's a win-win situation, and no urban local body would mind leaving a few % of its property tax if there is a 5-star or 4-star rated building. In fact, if you recall, Mr. Didi, MEDA started its own net zero building, which was Maharashtra's first 5-star net zero building. The building is in advanced stage of construction now. So we wanted to start and we wanted to lead by an example. So I think that is something which we need to focus on. So these are the activities which have been done at MEDA level, at Maharashtra government level, at TMC level, and other ULB levels in Maharashtra.
Thank you, sir. I think actually a lot of things happened in Maharashtra and also can happen in Maharashtra.
Yeah.
So looking forward to work with you. I think Maxine is having another question for you. Maxine.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for describing the great activities that you've been doing. I have a follow-up question, and it's about working about how to coordinate activities between state designated agencies and the urban local bodies. I wondered if you had any recommendations for how to increase coordination and integration across these two different levels.
Thank you, Ms. Jordan, for asking this very relevant question. This reminds me of the day when I took over as DG MEDA. Then I realized most of the urban local bodies would have no idea what MEDA is, what MEDA does. So we took Bureau into confidence. Mr. Didi was instrumental in devising the program wherein we involved the urban local bodies in large scale. We conducted training programs for urban local bodies in their headquarters. So they realized what is energy efficiency, what is MEDA doing, what are they supposed to do. So to better coordinate the activities of SDAs and help ULBs in better coordination and adopting of those activities, I think a continuous comprehensive dialogue and engagement is a must. This could come in any form. This could come in way of training programs, these kind of webinars like we are having today, a joint meetings, a joint presentations. So there are so many forums these days. It is very important because otherwise ULBs are not very aware of the activities which SDAs are doing. And SDAs being very small in size, SDAs are extremely small in size. In fact, in a state like Maharashtra, MEDA has a staff of around 65 people. So just imagine a staff of 65 people in a state like Maharashtra, which is interested with this activity of coordination and energy efficiency and energy conservation as well as renewable energy. And also there have been a lot of discussions of segregating the activities under renewable energy production as well as energy efficiency. So Maharashtra has not segregated that. Some states have done that. So I think that is a big part which has to be done because energy, renewable energy generation and energy conservation and energy efficiencies, they are totally different activities requiring different focus. So that is one thing which needs to be done as soon as possible. Also for the coordination, there has to be an expert group of professionals who are well versed with not only the energy efficiency techniques, ECBC, Eco Awas Sanhita, but also with the town planning rules, unified DCR, etc., etc. so that they can guide both the SDAs as well as ULBs in devising common programs to go ahead. Also, ULBs can do so many things on their own without the building parts. For example, one part is the renewable energy, energy saving lamps. Second is retrofitting the government offices. For example, we in Maharashtra undertook the retrofitting of 1,500 government buildings of Public Works Department in cooperation with Energy Efficiency Services Limited. So that was a huge step. 1,500 government buildings getting retrofitted. We could imagine the kind of savings which these buildings would get under energy efficiency equipment, energy efficient activities. So these activities have to be ongoing, and also there can be a thought of establishing dedicated cells in urban local bodies who will be manned by a person not less than the rank of maybe a deputy engineer, who would be in a continuous touch with SDAs to know what latest is happening, how it is happening, how it is to be implemented in the urban local bodies. So this continuous comprehensive communication and dialogue is the only way to better coordinate the activities between SDAs and urban local bodies. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, as Mr. Suneet Mathur has not joined, I think he told us that he will join, but due to some other commitment, and I request Vipin Sharma ji, if you can stay back also, because people may ask you some questions as well.
Yeah, I'm here only.
Okay, sir, thank you.
Yeah.
And so we will skip questions for Mr. Suneet Mathur. If he will join, we can ask him at the later stage. So my next question is to one of the prominent states like Karnataka, to Mr. Hanumant Rayappa ji. The housing, Hanumant Rayappa ji, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The housing demand in India is expected to grow in the coming decade. And Karnataka is one of the states where actually a lot of construction is going to happen in around Bangalore and other cities. With such a large built up area, so is yet to be constructed. What do you suggest will act as a motivation for the ULBs or SDA or state to adopt such voluntary or mandatory building codes? And what do you see as the main opportunity for integrating energy efficiency in the sector? So over to Hanumant Rayappa ji.
Is it audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
A very good evening to one and all present. I'm very much thankful to Mr. Saurabh Deddy, IEA, for inviting me as a panelist for today's discussion. If you see the building energy use growing annually at the rate of 8%, about 8%. If you see the Karnataka energy consumption scenario, the total annual energy consumption is about 76,000 million units per annum, out of which the domestic sector is consuming about 22%, around 16,000 million units per annum, and the commercial sector is consuming around 13%, that is 10,000 million units per annum. The total building sector alone in Karnataka is consuming around 35% of the total electricity consumption in the state. The energy conservation is the foundation for energy independence. Hence, there is a need to promote energy efficiency in the building sector. There are a lot of challenges at the local level we are facing for implementation of energy efficiency and energy conservation measures. Number one is the market transformation. The market transformation strategy emphasizing energy efficient construction materials and technology. The policy intervention by the government to boost local manufacturing of energy efficient materials and electromechanical system to cater the cost effective of the building construction. The next one is encouraging the startup associated with the building sector applications. And the second point is the implementation of a more pilot project, duly adopting new technology, energy efficient designs, and use of latest technology appliances, etc., to showcase the benefits in terms of lower operating cost, mitigation of carbon emission, and attaining optimal human comfort during operational life cycle of the building. The integration of building related policy on a single platform to form a general directive for sustainable and efficient buildings. And incentives for the new constructions like rebate on home loan interest, property tax reduction, reduction in licensing fees, increase in floor area ratio, etc. Emphasizing self-reliance of energy consumption. Integrating rating mechanism policy and scheme with the existing general process associated with the building sector. This is one of the important things. And inclusion of young professionals in the system to bring in integration of best practices, that is upgrading of skill set of a department and efficacy of the system. It's a very, very important thing we need to do it. And course curriculum should look forward, emphasizing EC and EE measures. Detailing should be based on the level of education from schools to college level. Synergizing the efforts of academia, industry, and policymakers and enforcers to bring the sustainability and efficient building life cycle process. We believe by addressing all these concerns, the adoption of the code shall be effective among the general public, where the building energy efficiency shall become a common practice and not induced by a mandatory policy enforcement interventions. Thank you.
Thank you, Hanumantraipaji, for such a good insight which you gave to us. Maxine, if you can ask the next question.
Thank you very much. Our next question is for Mr. Rajkiran. And so we know that Andhra Pradesh is among one of the first states to have adopted the Eco-Niwas building code for residential building and start implementing it. Could you tell us about the lessons that you learned and the challenges that you faced, and what recommendations you might give to other states that would be starting on this journey, please?
Thank you, Maxine. In fact, I thank Saurabh Didi sir and Director General Bureau of Energy Efficiency and all the panel members, including Honorable Ajay Jain sir, Vipin Sharma ji and other panel members for an excellent talk and then discussion and then guidance also. We have in last 1.5 hours today afternoon, we got to know many things about energy conservation building code implementation in the states with the support of Bureau of Energy Efficiency. In fact, I would like to thank Bureau of Energy Efficiency for their constant support to reach to this level of implementation in the state of AP and Telangana. It's almost like now 10 years of efforts to reach to this level, and so that we are discussing these lessons and challenges. As per whatever our experience in last 10 years in these states, with the leadership, as you have seen, the top leadership, principal secretary level, they know about each and every minute details of energy conservation building code implementation, and then they talk in that effective way in these platforms. And that is the, I think that is the beauty of this implementation and the leadership support which we got in Andhra Pradesh. Thank you, Ajay Jain sir, for putting all those things in this forum. So what I feel that it's a leadership challenge which we face initially. How to buy in, as Saurabh Didi ji mentioned, and even Director General ji mentioned today morning, and Maxine mentioned about that buy-in, how we can actually unlock the potential and then convince the top leadership and government to adopt it in a very effective way. That is a real challenge in all these states. Once it is like we convince the government for that buy-in, and then people will start implement, and then it comes to that particular kind of rules and regulatory framework, as you mentioned in urban planning, to set the rules and regulations once this buy-in happens. the leadership support will be there, and that top leadership creates this ease of governance business so that we can involve more and more people for faster adoption and implementation. So that is, I think, that is a key challenge, how to make buy-in, because in earlier days when the supply demand deficit was there, that was the time it was easy to have this buy-in. But then during the very less gap of demand supply gap, going towards energy efficiency practices and all, that is somewhere it is very difficult to convince the stakeholders. And stakeholders mean urban development department and energy department can go ahead, but then electricity utilities, the real estate developer associations, and other stakeholders, even like consumers, to bring them on a same platform and to build that consensus. That's another second challenge which I feel. So first is the top leadership challenge, to convince the top leadership. Second is for effective stakeholder consultation, for that consensus, to make that consensus, to construct energy efficient buildings across the state, to adopt the energy conservation building code and Eco-Niwas Samhita, and to have the practice, to make it practice for adoption and constructing. To achieve that energy efficiency in the building sector. That's, I feel, that the second challenge. Third challenge, I feel that it's an effective outreach, as already all the panel members mentioned in today afternoon. So I am just collating that information and then it's a gist of, but then with my experience also in these states, that it is effective outreach. Until and unless we create the pool of experts, we create the curriculum of that and take it to all the stakeholders, including Council of Architecture, mechanical, electrical and plumbing consultant, energy consultants and others. And as sir mentioned, even Ajay Jain sir mentioned, and then Vipin Sharma sir mentioned, to have the lower level labor class and then the unskilled labor for masons and all, electricians and all. Until and unless we take it to those people, that outreach will not be possible, and then implementation will have certain kind of challenges at local level. Because residential building code, it has a very big outreach. And then when we are thinking about, if we are thinking about commercial buildings, at least large commercial buildings, they have their energy consultants, experts to help them with several tools like simulation and other tools. But then for residential buildings at lower level, the tier 2 and tier 3 cities, we need to develop this particular kind of pool of experts. So that is a very big challenge. And then we have to create a lot of efforts and capacity building program across the segment, right from the real estate developers, the government officials, as sir mentioned, there are 15,000 engineers who work with across the state. Those 15,000 engineers need to be trained, and then the energy consultants, real estate developers, architects, civil engineers, as well as the unskilled workers who support the entire energy efficiency construction. And then fourth challenge, I feel that the constant support. Because if we leave it in between, then also it's a challenge. So that constant support is required until and unless smooth operation will be there. As Vipin Sharma ji also mentioned, that we are including now in auto DCR, means the UDCR. So AP and Telangana, both the governments already incorporated in their building bylaws and building rules itself. So it is there in the process of building construction approval and building construction process. Once it is there, then that constant support is required, that how you are going to design these particular kind of buildings, what kind of materials are there and all. So as I mentioned, the leadership is like urban planning to set the rules and regulation. Effective stakeholder consultation leads to the new buildings and existing buildings, how we can convince the government, and then government in industry coalition can be established with that. The effective outreach is like building operations. It deals the issues with the building operations, appliances, materials, and material directory, which Bureau of Energy Efficiency is supporting with that. And constant support is to unlock the potential, new innovation, and the case studies need to be built, and then take those case studies to the people who can actually understand those case studies to build. And it's not, as Ajay Jain sir mentioned, it is not just a process, it is not just a kind of effort, it's a movement. Now it is a movement. So that movement has to be reached. And I think I thank the leadership of both the states, AP government as well as the Telangana government to support and to convert from just a process, convert from the effort to the movement, and we reach to that level, and then a lot of efforts are needed to move ahead in this arena. So that's what my points. And then I think the residential buildings, as sir mentioned, 3 million houses. Once the government adopts that, the designs will automatically percolate in the local area, and those designs, those construction practices will be followed in other building construction as well. So that has to be taken in a very effective way and then strengthened and supported, so that each and every household, each and every real estate developer, each and every small contractor who constructs the small houses within the tier 2, tier 3, even villages, they will adopt these practices and go ahead. But the most effective challenge is the availability of materials and the material directory and the cost, as Hanumantraya also mentioned. So thank you, Saurabh-ji, for giving me an opportunity. Thank you, Maxine, for giving me an opportunity to speak here. Over to you.
Thank you very much for your response. It's very interesting to hear these different perspectives, and we really like this. Energy efficiency is not a program; it's a movement. I think that's a very important concept. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Now, moving on to our next speaker, we have a question for Dr. Anand Shukla from SDC, the Swiss Agency for Development Corporation. And the BEEP India project has been instrumental in the development of the Eco-NIWA Samhita Code itself, and is now working with several state-designated agencies to implement the code. And in your work, we know that your team has been working with many different stakeholders, including architects, engineers, skilled laborers, but also the informal sector. And we would like to ask you what your team suggests as some of the best mechanisms to facilitate the integration of energy efficiency in both public sector construction and private sector development. Please.
Thanks,
Can you hear us?
Anand Shukla ji, you are not audible.
Yes, Maxine, am I audible?
Now
Yes,
you
please.
are, yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Maxine. There's some problem here actually with the, it seems I'm not able to see anything. Now I can see here.
We can
Hello?
hear you. We can hear you and we can see you.
Thanks a lot. And for the session. It's an honor to this panel here. Before go on to your question, I would like words to see that topic of central to activities in India.
Yes.
Yes.
If you can switch off your video, I think then voice will be clear. Your voice
The
is
topic.
not.
So the topic is that fine?
We've lost you again. Are you having internet problems?
No, I mean, I was sharing throughout actually.
Okay, now it seems okay. I'm going to switch off my video. Maybe that'll help. But now we can hear you quite well, actually.
Okay, thank you. I was saying that the topic of building is central to SDC's activities here in India. For example, the building energy efficiency, I think that we have seen in the presentations also, it's our flagship project. And in addition to that, we have several other projects in the building sector. It's integration of renewables in buildings. recently started a project in Ladakh that is solar passive heated housing. And in addition to that, we have another flagship project on building materials, that's low carbon cement. I think Maxine, in your presentation you showed, and I think I see clearly some synergy in what STC is doing here in India and what we anticipate here through the roadmap. And we have a project at the city level where we consider building at the city planning level. So clearly there is actually a lot to share, and since we have been working with BEE and IEA already, so in this important work of developing the roadmap, so I think we would be keen to be part of the process and also would like to share our experience and knowledge that we have gained in these last years. Now, coming to your question, how do we integrate energy efficiency in the private and the public sector? I think one clear point I would like to make is it is essential to make ENS, the Eco-Niwas Samhita, mandatory. But at the same time, to show our seriousness, we need to expedite also the whole process. But in the whole process, actually, it's very important to look at other aspects also. There are three important points which I would prefer to highlight here. Our experience while developing ENS along with BE, when we interacted with the state partners, state officials and the builders, there was a strong demand of having a simple code. Simple code which is practical and also easy to compliant also. So when we were developing or working on ENS, I think we capitalized on this particular demand, and we emphasized on a lot actually developing a simple code, but with a lot of research and simulation work. And I must say that it has been widely appreciated also at the state level and also with the builders, since we have been working closely with these two key players. And so the second point I would like to hear, before we go for making the code mandatory, I think the state authorities and the builders would like to test it. Test in the sense that they would like to assess whether it is practical, the benefits that they can see, and the cost that is involved. I think in earlier presentations, it was very clearly highlighted also. So I think these are very, very important things. And it's very important when we go for pilot testing, the builders and the city authorities are provided the high quality technical support by the team. And in our B project, we endeavor, and I'm happy to say that we always prefer to go with the high-end solutions. And at least actually, before we make it mandatory for 2 years, we provide this high-quality technical assistance to these builders and the city authorities. That builds the confidence, I must say that. And the third point is, it's the building material and the construction technologies that is needed to make any building ENS compliant. The supply chain is very, very important here. I think it has been highlighted earlier also, the supply chain part. Otherwise, without having actually a proper supply chain, the whole efforts of making it mandatory will not serve the whole purpose here. So I think these are three important points that I would say are key to making the buildings more energy efficient and before making the ENS mandatory in the states. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Anand Shukla. Now, my next question, or Maxine, are you going, shall I ask? Okay. My next question is to Mr. Ranjan. Similar to SDC, the GIZ team is also working with state designated agencies to implement ENS through ENS cells. Each of these states are at different level in the energy portfolio. What learnings you can you share? And more specifically, what role do you think peer-to-peer comparison and sharing success story play in motivating state? Also, if you can add what are the priorities to make this in the energy efficiency sector, if you can add to that.
Sure. Thank you very much, Saurabh. Thank you, Maxine, for inviting me in this prestigious panelist system. Basically, we have been working in 5 states to implement ENS code and building energy efficiency altogether at the state level, or you can say at the local government level. So the 5 states that we have chosen is Uttar Pradesh, Delhi, Punjab, Karnataka, and of course Maharashtra. There we find very much in line with the requirement what we have for the energy efficiency in buildings. They are the real progressive states. They wanted to do something on the energy efficiency part as well with respect to the sector. And I totally agree that the 5 states are having different level of energy efficiency altogether, but they have a very common goal, or having a energy efficiency residential building in the states. But at the same time, when we started this code making in Bureau, we have started our work in 2016, where there are lots of things to be done in this sector, and we wanted to have a roadmap. What you are making right now, we wanted to have a roadmap. What are the potential areas and what are the challenges that we would like to face if we're going to implement this type of energy efficiency systems in the states itself. We wanted to think about a common man, and that is why Mr. Anand Shukla has also emphasized about the usability, about the simplicity of the code, where a common man can also understand what is all allowed and how it will be implemented. But when we started, when we made the code, when we set everything at the central level, we found that if it is to be implemented in the states, we need a very much support systems, like what Ms. Nidhi has also mentioned about building material directory. That was the base, or you can say the main heart of the complete energy efficiency implementations. So that is where it has started. And we wanted to do this by this year itself, the building material directory. And you have rightly pointed out about the embodied energy part as well, because I am from the industry side as well. I worked in cement industry and steel industry. I know what embodied energy plays a role in the building systems, and if it is there, it will be there for so long, for 50 years. So that is the reason we also wanted to emphasize this embodied energy standards in our code. So we wanted to make the code very progressive and futuristic as well, and that is the reason we have included, or we wanted to include, some annexers in the code itself in terms of embodied energy standards. So that is where this will come to the picture, where we have to develop something about the standards, embodied energy standards, and that will make the buildings more efficient in terms of using this energy in terms of operations as well, because then we have to look out the operational cost with respect to implementation of those energy building materials. That was the one thing that we have calculated. And the same thing when we talked about the replicability of model, because everybody is not having the access to the architects. So that is the reason we try to develop the replicable model design, where more than 4,000 model will be replicated, will be there, and anybody can take out from that tool, that tool which is available in equinivas.com. They can simply took this building specifications like BIM model, like AutoCAD, the bill of materials, the prices and everything. They can compare those models in a different directions, in a different orientations, and then finally come out with the best results for the implementations. So those are the things that we have done so far. With respect to other things which is getting implemented in the state right now, the most common thing that we have come across is about the awareness at all the level. So we try to focus at the top-down approach and as well as at the bottoms-up approach. Top-down approach means that we have to take care at the top level. We have to build the capacity at the top level. We wanted to give or impart the knowledge how this building energy efficiency could be implemented at the states. And from the bottoms-up approach, we visited the local developer. We have tried to meet the masons, the bricklayers in place, and wanted to discuss those things into the reality that how it can be done at the field level. What are the challenges that they are facing? The main challenge, as you know, is about availability of building materials, and that is where we are trying to focus on that as well. But when we visited these states, we can see that there are lots of lack of cooperation between the ministries, between the institutions as well. So that is where we have to focus on that area, that how they can come together and focus on their priority in terms of building energy efficiency. Then there would be a manual intervention in terms of building approval systems, which could be one of the area where we have to work out in future when we go for the compliance systems in terms of ENS code. And then the lack of incentive schemes, which is again lagging behind in the states. Right now, KfW has imparted a loan to SBI for around 250 million euro. In that terms, the incentive scheme may come to the level of developer. They can then where they can get 0.5 to 0.75% subsidized loan in terms of interest. So that is what we have planning to do. So in terms of awareness, we have done so far around 80 numbers of webinars in this 6 months, which is being participated by more than 8,000 participants from the architecture colleges to the developers to the architects and all. So that is what we are trying to do, and we are also focusing on demonstration projects where we are going ahead with 20 numbers of projects these days, because this is the one way. This is the one way what Mr. Rajkiran was also focusing, that we have to demonstrate among the people and the common man that this could be worked out at a lower cost, not at the cost which everybody thinks about, that it is if you are going to implement the energy efficiency in buildings, it will cost higher. So that is where we have to percolate down to the level that it is not there, that the cost is limited, and we can go still with the energy efficiency systems and save maximum 60% what we have done in the star labeling of this building. At the same time, when we talk about the code which is implemented in Germany, it took 45 years to reach at this level, net zero or energy plus buildings. But in India, we don't want to reinvent the wheel again. We have to go fast, and from 2007 we are making it forward. Now coming to the mainstreaming of energy efficiency, the question what Saurabh has asked about it. So I can see there will be 3 points, like you have to go with the initial incentive schemes for the buildings. Then you have to take the state ULBs, UDDs into the confidence that you have to implement this type of code. If you're going to implement this will save you money, not in the construction cost, but also in 50 years of life cycle. So we have to make them aware about the life cycle cost of the building as well, in terms of embodied energy and in terms of operational costs. That is where we have to focus on when we go for the top-down approaches. Now, the third part is we have to go with the automation, complete automation of compliance systems. So looking at the volume of the construction that will take place, you know, about 200 million houses will come by 2030. So that is the volume that we are going to have, and the amount of energy that is going to be consumed. So these are three things that we want to take from here onwards for the implementation of this ENS code. Thank you very much, Saurabh. Thank you, Maxime, for your interventions. Thanks.
Thank you so much for talking us through what your activities are and what your recommendations going forward are. We now have one final question to all of our panelists. Thank you for your patience, and we know that we've overrun a little bit, so thanks for those who are still on the line. But we do have one last question to our panelists, and then we have a couple of questions from the audience that would be interesting to discuss if you're able to stay on the line. So our last question is about the roadmap that we are working on. So I talked earlier about what we are aiming for in terms of structure, in terms of looking at the key issues, the existing policies and programs, looking at what's working, and suggest the key actions that different stakeholder groups might be able to take, along with a methodology for identifying indicators and setting targets. Could you each summarize, we'll go around in order again, in 1 to 2 minutes max, your one recommendation for us as we go into this journey in terms of what feature of this kind of project and document do you think would most add value to support the work that all of you are doing on energy efficiency in residential buildings? So if I go around looking at who is still with us, we have Mr. Raj Kiran. Would you go first, please?
Thank you, Jordan. In fact, the takeaway is we can, in fact, you suggested about the the urban planning and rules and new building and existing buildings versus building operations, appliances, material directory, and unlock the potential benefits. So I feel that the strengthening the top-down approach as well as the bottom-down approach, where we have these challenges to solve. The top-down approach is to convince the stakeholders, as well as the top-down approach, as even Vikas Ranjanji also mentioned, that is strengthening the capacity building program and an outreach within these particular kind of things to unlock the potential benefits, to understand the indicators. And it is actually the win-win situation, whether we will understand when we will understand the indicators from this particular kind of program and convince the top leadership. So it will come from the bottom-up approach, and then top-down approach can also be taken care and addressed. So I think that is where we have to work on all these aspects to strengthen the entire program. So that is my takeaway. So thank you, Jordan.
Thank you. And now if we go to Dr. Anand Shukla, what would be your quick recommendation for us?
I hope actually this time you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you very well.
Okay. Very clearly, from the roadmap's point of view, I think road has to be very clear and very crystal clear that where we want to reach in 2 or 3 years maximum. Reason being because we have the code already, and people are already sensitized with the benefits of energy efficient buildings. Now, what is lacking here, and this is also our experience, is the demand side. We have not talked much on the home buyers here because they are the important demand creator. It's all actually from the supply side, or you can say push side. We have discussed actually in this webinar, but very little has gone actually from the pull side. That is the demand side. The home buyers, unless they are sensitized, whatever regulations and the roadmap we see, when people who are going to live in their homes, if they are not convinced, I think that is where the emphasis have to be laid on. And in our BEE project, we have adopted one approach, just to share quickly here, that we are working with the media professionals. Reason being, if we inform media professionals about the benefit of building energy efficiency, they have the art of communicating with the common people. So my suggestion from our side, the suggestion would be to look at both sides, push side and the pull side, demand and the supply side. That's from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Vikash Ranjan, please.
Look, Maxine, this building energy efficiency is a very complex subject. When you talk about this, everybody is knowing about it. In fact, because everybody is living into a building. So if you have to present yourself, you have to be like the one you are presenting basically. So you need a knowledge exchange platform, a big knowledge exchange platform, where all the knowledges could be imparted to the top level as well as to the bottom level. Bottom level means it is up to the mason level, because if the building materials are available, they have to be applied as well. The application is very poor, because if you see if there are availability of double glazed window or triple glazed window, but how it will be applied, what is the application of this, they don't know about it. So that is more important. Though we have to think about a complete massive knowledge exchange platform where one can push that into the down level, that means up to the honor level. That is what we think of.
Thank you very much. And thank you again for staying on the line. We have lost some of our panelists because of the overrun, but thank you for staying on. I think now we'd like to show the results from the Menti polls. So I'm just gonna bring that up quickly. So we asked our audience which type of organization they represented, and we're seeing, sorry, I actually can't see my screen. Most people in our audience were architects or engineers, so actually working with designing buildings. Some representation from national government, international organizations, and urban local bodies, and a few from state designated agencies. We also asked which policy instrument would better motivate voluntary adoption of green building measures. So apologies if the font is a little bit small, but the one that came out first was mandatory regulation. But we did also hear through our panel the importance of other measures, including incentives and other measures to drive adoption of green building measures by developers and by builders. We also asked what was the biggest challenge faced by the industry in the construction of energy efficient buildings. And we have a few top answers. So it seems like all of these issues are very relevant. So lack of understanding of the benefits of energy efficient buildings, lack of clear guidelines about how to implement energy efficient measures in building construction, lack of market demand from home owners, and lack of adequately skilled workforce, and also cost issues. Excuse me. Cost issues and lack of access to appropriate finance. So this is the feedback from our audience. And then finally, almost finally, in terms of ranking the multiple benefits of energy efficient buildings, which one resonate the most with the audience? The top answer was increased thermal comfort, increased affordability of energy services, so it'll be lower bills. Resilience is also high, followed by creation of jobs, increased integration of renewable energy, and higher values of real estate is actually last. So that's interesting. And then finally, we asked a similar question to what we just asked you. So what are the most useful features of the roadmap that we'll be working on? Which ones would be most useful? So top out top came identification of priority gaps in data, and also best practice technologies and policies from India, followed by from other countries and indicators and targets. So that's very useful feedback for us, and we'll be scheduling further stakeholder consultation events, more focused and maybe more technical on special issues, where we'll be able to bring in some different perspectives to our panels. And we'll be holding further webinars, and we hope to communicate with everyone participating in this process through these means and through our LinkedIn page as well, that we'll send round with the presentation to all of our attendees. So once again, apologies for having overrun, but it was a really fascinating session for us to hear all of these very important perspectives. All I can do is say thank you and look forward to speaking again on this topic. So thanks to our panelists, and Mr. Saurabh Didi, I'll let you give some closing remarks as well.
Thank you, Maxine. And I would like to thank, and first of all, sorry, we are skipping Q&A, but we will revert to all of your questions either through chat box or through the LinkedIn Connect. You can connect us through LinkedIn. I would like to thank Mr. Ajijan, although he left due to some other commitments, but we understand that his role is quite important in implementation of these activities. And actually, he is not only doing programs, but he is actually working on a movement called energy efficiency in his state. And also would like to thank Mr. Vipin Sharma ji, who was actually instrumental in ECBC in Maharashtra, and looking forward his support in Maharashtra state. He also left because of some other meeting. He actually stayed us with almost 5:20 or 5:25, but that time he messaged me that I'm leaving because of some other commitment. I would like to thank Mr. Hanumanthara ji. Also, he also left, although because he's doing a marvelous job in Karnataka. Thanks to Mr. Rajkiran, who is actually professor as well, and he is. Whenever we have some kind of technical glitch, some kind of a technical thing as well, we ask Rajkiran and ask for those queries that what we should do, and looking forward to work with you in future as well. Then I would like to thank Mr. Anand Shukla, I can see him, but his role is also important because SDC is working in this area for a long time and looking forward to work with you. Then I would like to thank Mr. Vikas Ranjan, last but not the least. He was instrumental in PAT program and organizing PAT in a systematic manner, and looking forward to make building sector similar on the similar grounds, and hope we will work together in future in the long term as well. So thank you, Mr. Vikas Ranjan. I would like to thank all the team members from IEA and Bureau of Energy Efficiency who were instrumental. They did number of activities in the background, and when this seminar or webinar was going on, still they were doing number of activities for successful conduction of this program. I would like to thank Mel. Mel is also there right till the end. So Mel, thank you very much for joining this program and supporting from IEA side for such initiative, and looking forward to work with IEA on such more and more such initiatives. At the end, I would like to thank Miss Maxine Jordan as well. I actually made her life miserable because of number of questions, number of things I'm asking her, that what we should do, this, that, and all those things. So thanks a lot for working together. Hope you will work with me in future as well. You will not see that I made your life miserable, so you will not work with me anymore. So don't do that. Thanks a lot. And if I miss someone, I'm sorry for that, but thank you to each and everyone in the team and also the attendees who actually attended this program, and looking forward for everyone that let's do, or let's work together and make it a movement, as Mr. Ajay Jain said. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Maxine, if you want to add.
Thank you.
Mel is there. Mel would like to add.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Saurabh Didi.
Thanks a lot.
As always, yes.
Thank you.
We'll now be closing the webinar. Thanks everyone for attending. Take care. Bye-bye.